Ravenwood Manor stood abandoned for decades, an imposing Victorian house that loomed over the small town of Millfield. Its dark windows seemed to watch anyone who dared to approach, and whispers of its haunted past kept even the bravest souls at bay. The Johnson family, Mark, his wife Laura, and their teenage daughter Emily, moved into Ravenwood Manor, undeterred by its reputation. They saw potential in the grand old house and planned to restore it to its former glory. The first few nights were uneventful, but soon the house began to show its true nature. Emily was the first to notice the change. At night, she heard faint whispers and footsteps in the halls. One evening she saw a shadowy figure standing at the end of her bed, watching her with hollow eyes. Terrified, she ran to her parents, but Mark dismissed her fears as nightmares. Laura started experiencing strange occurrences as well. She would hear crying when she was alone and find objects moved to different places. One night, she awoke to the sensation of someone pulling her hair, only to find no one there. The house seemed alive, its walls pulsating with malevolent energy. Mark, ever the skeptic, tried to rationalize the events. However, when he discovered an old journal in the attic, his disbelief began to waver. The journal belonged to Eleanor Ravenwood, the original owner who went mad and died mysteriously. Her last entry was a chilling plea for help, written in a frantic scrawl. "It wants us all." Desperate for answers, Mark contacted a local historian who revealed the dark history of the house. Eleanor had performed occult rituals, and it was believed she summoned a malevolent entity that haunted the manor. The historian warned that the entity was dangerous and would stop at nothing to claim new victims. That night, the haunting escalated to a terrifying peak. The family was tormented by unseen forces that threw objects, slammed doors, and whispered threats. Emily saw Eleanor's ghost, her face twisted in agony, begging for release. The entity grew more aggressive, making it clear that it would not let the family leave alive. In a desperate bid to escape, Mark and Laura gathered their children and ran for the door. But the entity was relentless. The air grew frigid, and shadows writhed along the walls. Laura was dragged across the floor by an invisible force, and Mark struggled to free her. With a final burst of strength, they broke free and fled the house, abandoning all their belongings. Ravenwood Manor remains empty, its dark presence a blight on the town of Millfield. The Johnson family never returned, and the house stands as a chilling reminder of the terror within. Locals avoid it, sharing hushed stories of the manor's cursed history. The Johnsons, though safe, are forever haunted by their ordeal, a living testament to the horrors that lurk in Ravenwood Manor. Blackwood House had long been the subject of fearful whispers in the small town of Pine Hollow. Built on the site of an old burial ground, the house was said to be cursed, and the string of mysterious deaths and disappearances that plagued its owners seemed to confirm this dark reputation. The Blake family, Sarah, her husband Tom, and their young son Jake, moved into Blackwood House, drawn by its affordable price and charming architecture. They dismissed the town's warnings as superstitious nonsense and settled in, eager to make the house their home. The first night, Sarah heard faint, sorrowful wails coming from the basement. She assumed it was the wind, but the cries grew louder and more desperate each night. Jake began talking about a sad lady who visited him in his dreams, her eyes filled with tears. Tom found old, yellowed photographs hidden in the attic, depicting a family who once lived there. Their faces were blurred and their eyes seemed to follow him. He also discovered an old, leather-bound book detailing rituals meant to communicate with the dead. Sarah's unease grew, and she started seeing shadowy figures moving in the corners of her vision. One evening, Jake went missing. They found him in the basement staring at a crumbling wall. He claimed the sad lady had shown him where she was buried. Tom and Sarah were horrified to find a hidden room behind the wall containing human remains and tattered clothing. Sarah contacted a paranormal investigator who confirmed the presence of restless spirits. The investigator explained that the house was built on cursed land and that the spirits of those buried there were trapped, seeking vengeance on the living. The investigator warned them to leave, but the house had already taken hold. That night, the haunting reached its peak. The spirits became aggressive, slamming doors, throwing objects, and whispering threats. Jake was found speaking in an eerie, unfamiliar language, his eyes glazed over. The family was under siege, their lives hanging by a thread. The final straw came when Sarah saw the apparition of a woman in a white dress, her face twisted in grief, reaching out to her. The family fled the house in terror, driving through the night until they reached a distant relative's home. They vowed never to return. Blackwood House stands empty, its dark windows and overgrown yard a testament to its cursed history. The Blakes, though safe, are scarred by their experience, and the town of Pine Hollow continues to tell the tale of the haunted house and its tragic past. No one dares to enter Blackwood House, and it remains a sinister monument to the horrors that lie within. Willow Creek Farmhouse, nestled deep in the woods, had been abandoned for years. The locals spoke of it in hushed tones, recounting tales of a tragic massacre that left the spirits of the dead trapped within its walls. The Harris family, John, his wife Marie, and their teenage son David, purchased the farmhouse, unaware of its dark history. They were excited about their new beginning, but their enthusiasm quickly turned to fear. The first night, Marie heard whispers coming from the attic. She dismissed them as the wind, but the whispers grew louder and more persistent. David began having nightmares about a family being slaughtered in the house. He saw ghostly figures in his room, their faces contorted in agony. John, ever the skeptic, brushed off their fears, believing there was a rational explanation. Marie found an old diary hidden in the walls, written by the previous owner. The diary detailed the family's descent into madness, driven by the haunting spirits of the murdered family. The final entry was a chilling warning. They will never let us leave. The haunting grew more intense. Objects moved on their own, and cold spots appeared throughout the house. David saw the apparitions of children crying, their faces pale and eyes hollow. Marie felt a cold hand brush against her face, and John began to hear voices calling his name. John contacted a paranormal expert who revealed the dark history of the farmhouse. It had been the site of a brutal massacre, and the spirits of the victims were trapped, seeking vengeance. The expert warned them to leave, but the house had already ensnared them. The spirits became more aggressive, slamming doors, throwing objects, and whispering threats. Marie was temporarily possessed, speaking in a guttural voice, recounting the horrors the spirits had endured. The family was terrified, realizing they were in grave danger. The final night was a nightmare. The spirits attacked the family with relentless fury. David was nearly pulled out of his bed by an unseen force, and John struggled to free him. Marie saw the ghostly figure of a woman standing at the foot of her bed, her face twisted in anger and pain. In a desperate bid to escape, John grabbed his family and fled the house, leaving everything behind. Willow Creek Farmhouse stands empty, its dark windows and overgrown yard a testament to its haunted past. The Harris family moved far away, but the memories of their ordeal haunt their dreams. The farmhouse remains abandoned, a sinister reminder of the spirits that still lurk within.